I'm pushing the wood through. My fence is locked. I know where I want my cut to be. It's important that you keep your hands well clear of the blade while you're making the cut, and it's important that I don't stand right behind the blade. If I stand right behind the blade, then if the wood kicks back, it's going to come back and come straight into me and straight into my gut. And I don't want that to happen. So you want to either stand on one side of the blade or come to the other side and stand over here while you push the wood through. Those are the two safe standing positions. We're going to send the wood through. I've locked my fence. I want this is what I'm concentrating on. This surface, I need to pay attention the whole time with the cut and make sure that my wood stays up against the fence. I don't want it to wander like that or wander like that. I want to do straight cuts and I want to stay, that's my guide. So I need to stay close to that. So I'm going to be pushing with lateral force this way, and I'm going to be pushing forward to push it through the blade. As you are preparing to cut, push with a forward movement from your right hand well to the right of the blade. Using your left hand, apply a lateral force to keep the lumber against the ripping fence. This lateral force needs to stay in front of the blade at all times. Keep your eye on the ripping fence to make sure the lumber stays touching and does not wander. As the lumber progresses forward into the blade, continue forward movement with the right hand. Also continue pushing the lumber with a lateral force with the left hand, but only in front of the blade. Never push with a lateral force on the side of the blade or behind the blade. This will push the lumber into the blade, causing the blade to bind and eventually resulting in kickback, with the tool throwing the lumber back at you. Also continue to ensure that the lumber stays flush to the ripping fence at all times. This is the area in relation to the blade where you must never push laterally. This force will push the lumber into the blade, binding onto the blade and kicking the lumber back at you. When you can no longer push laterally with your left hand, change your left hand force to a forward movement only. Although the blade guard is raised for this picture, you will not be cutting lumber with the guard in this position. The guard was lifted for this photo only. As the lumber goes through the blade, keep the forward movement of the right hand and add the forward movement of the left hand. Continue to keep the lumber flush against the ripping fence at all times. Push the lumber completely past the blade. If possible, push it onto the outfeed table. If you do not push the lumber past the blade, there is still a chance of kickback as you turn off the machine and as the blade spins down. Again, the blade guard was lifted for this photo only. You will not be cutting any lumber with the blade guard lifted. I'm going to put the lumber right behind the blade, but I'm not going to be touching the blade. You never want to start the saws with the lumber touching the blade. We're going to back it up. We're going to bring the guard down, and then we pull the switch, and I'm pushing this way with this hand, but when I get to the blade, I don't want to continue to push that way because that's going to push the cutoff piece into the blade. So mostly I want to keep this hand here, but not keep this pressure going forward. So my hand stays there. This is all staying nice and snug. Now when I get to this point, I'm going to push with this hand forward only, and I'm going to push with this hand forward only. I'm not going to push in with that. And that's our standard ripping cut. The distance here is about a little more than 7 inches. The general rule is if I get under 3 inches, 3 inches or under, I want to use a push stick to help guide the lumber through. So again, I'm pushing force this way and force this way. And then when the wood gets to the table, I can take my push stick, notch it behind there, we'll do it with a push stick from another point of view. If this piece is too small, use the push stick to push that out of the way. The ripping fence has a ruler built into it that you can use for your measurements. The ripping fence is only as accurate as this clear gauge is with its fine-tune adjustment. So you can use that as a measuring device, but if you want accurate cuts, I would measure between the fence and the blade only. If we were to set this up to 6 inches, it says it's precisely 6 inches. I'm going to lock it down. I'm going to take a measurement from my blade, and you see it's 6 inches down the center of the blade. I wouldn't want to trust that if I want it to be exactly 6 inches. If I want it to be exactly 6 inches, I will adjust it and I will make it so that my 6-inch mark lines up exactly with this side of the blade. That means the distance between this side of the blade and the fence is 6 inches, and I will cut a 6-inch wide piece of wood. I don't need to mark the piece of wood for 6 inches because I've set my fence up at 6 inches. All I need to do is run the piece of wood and keep it flush up against the fence, and we are good. If I instead needed to cut 6 inches off of a piece of wood, then I want to measure to the other side of the blade because my good piece is over here, and I want to cut off 6 inches. So I need to account for the blade width. And sometimes when you lock it down, the fence shifts a little bit. So then you have to unlock it and adjust it again.